how did you come to the idea when you started formulating these ideas of what the lyrics were going to be about and what the song is going to be about?
Yeah.
How did you come to that?
It's I was just kind of listening to the song, which was at that point just guitars and your drums basically.
Yeah. Shitty drums.
Shitty drums, but program drums.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of the first thing, and then I kind of get this vocal melody in my head, and at first I'm just writing down words to kind of fit the kind of cadence and syllables I want. So most of the words are just, I want a 3-syllable word here, so I just add a word that fits that, and I don't think too much about if it makes sense. It's to have something to sing. So that's where I start, and then I kind of jump around to different sections, which section inspire me the most next. So I kind of go to the most interesting parts, and then I leave the kind of less inspired parts towards the end. Maybe I need more of the keyboards in that section before I kind of get the vocals there. And so after writing maybe half of the lyrics, I started to kind of read through them and see, is there something here that makes sense or tells me something, what the song is really about. And then I started to get this idea of, it started with called global warming or something like that, and then sort of we have to be united to kind of overcome the potential end of the world. So it started with sort of a global warming thing, and then I kind of made it more vague or in general about that. So it's not necessarily just global warming, it could be anything, but something that's bigger than humanity that kind of threatens us. And that's why kind of my walls of blah 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 became our walls, because it's about humanity as a whole and not just me as an individual. And so it became basically that. So that's kind of my idea of what the lyrics are about. But I'm kind of interpreting my own lyrics. It's not a concrete idea. It's just me writing just random shit, and I'm kind of, what is this about? And then I'm like, okay, it's about this, and then I just tweak the sentences that doesn't fit that, so it all makes sense in the end. That's how I write lyrics.
So how then in your interpretation of your own words, what is the arcane or Arcane Horizons?
The Arcane Horizons, because arcane, the word arcane means kind of unknown, and horizons is the future, so it's the unknown future of our world that we are kind of, are we seeing good times ahead or bad times ahead? And if there are bad times, what can we do to prevent that? So that's the Arcane Horizons that's in front of us.
Inspiring.
Yeah.
Sure is.
And when we're going from this instrumental part to this part with vocals on it, most of it at least, then it starts sounding like a finished song, and now we just need to like do it better. That's the job. So going from this hard demo where most of the song is actually complete, most of the sections are there, they might just be like moved a little bit, doubled in length or something, but most of it is there in a good place, and I think during this next part we get some of the lyrics on the verse and
it's a different verse than what we ended up with in the final song, because this is before we got the final keyboards from Henrik. And before that I had a different idea for what the melody in the first verse should be, and so it wasn't before we got the keyboards from Henrik where I kind of got the robotic voice and my voice in call and response. So that's true. Not in this nest.
That is. So let's listen to the original idea.
Yeah.
Exciting. Yeah.
So as you can hear, the lyrics are mostly the same, but it's really different.
And it's a bit softer too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also missing all the secondary parts of the vocals, right? Like
Yeah,
this is the
robotic.
call. Yeah, this is the call or the response, not both of them. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then the chorus is basically what became now. Then I didn't have vocals at this section yet, so
Yeah.
that came very late in the process actually, because I was unsure about that clean part if it should be instrumental or not. So it wasn't until right before Henrik left the band actually when I added that vocal. It was
that's
really
true.
late in the process.
Yeah. But we had a structure. We had something
Yeah.
to go on. It's gonna be like something like the first verse.
Yeah.
First verse, and the song is expanding in length. We're adding more stuff. We're doubling the chorus in some parts,
Yeah.
and most importantly, we are adding a solo part because
Yeah.
I'm not writing any solos for any demos usually, so Anders came and was like, we need a solo here.
And I don't want to play in 3/4. I
Yeah.
want to play in 4/4.
Yeah.
So you just wrote a 4/4 riff
And we
Yeah.
inserted it.
and inserted
right
it into the bridge somewhere.
Exactly. And this is, I think, the only 4/4 part of the
Yeah.
song.
Probably, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it is.
Most of it is
Most of
it
it's in the 3/4, and then we have some.
sevens and nines as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
But this is really groovy, so
It is.
it actually helps the song.
Yeah, it breaks up the like typical thing that is in the rest of the song.
Yeah.
And the solo is also close to what it is now, actually.
Yeah, this was probably one of the first things. I don't quite remember how we had some video, I think, on YouTube where we played it all the way through. I think this might have been that day.
Yeah,
Yeah, it might be the
it
same.
might be that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Anders is not happy with the solo or whatever that video is called.
That's,
Where you're just playing through the song, and then me and Øystein is like, "Wow, that was really good," and you're just like sloppy.
yeah.
This is again like you're coming up with this solo part, and this solo that you're playing is almost identical to the final product.
Yeah,
Which means like the original idea that you have could sometimes be the best idea.
Yeah, unless
Yeah.
something better comes up, which is typically
Yeah.
the case of when an idea is, good, but it's not the greatest thing ever. You just leave it there until someone comes up with something that's like, well, this is better. Let's
Yeah.
just replace it.
yeah,
And I remember during the process when you sent us some of the solo parts, I was a little bit hesitant to accepting the underlying riff.
Yeah.
So I think we jammed around a little bit on that, and we landed
Yeah.
on something that tied together a little bit more, at least for my part.
yeah. It's the riff that's there. It's close, but not exactly what ended up. So you did some tweaking to it, so it had more thematic ties to the
Yeah.
rest of the song.
A bit familiar.
Because it changes to 4/4, so because it changed the time signature, we have to have something that connects it to
Exactly,
the
yeah.
song. Yeah.
You have this really progressive song, and suddenly it's like all pop.
Yeah.
Where does this come from?
And that's kind of a thing we try to remember and try to really think about when writing music is we're not just trying to kind of throw in random parts and random sections
Yeah.
that don't fit together. We try to like, okay, this section sounds different than the rest of the song. Is there something we can do to kind of ease it more into it and make it sound like it fits and not just completely different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes completely different is fine, but usually we want to have some sort of either a thematic thing or a chord progression that's similar or a melody,
Mm.
but maybe change the time signature of it. So
Yeah.
it's a different rhythm, but it's the same notes or something like that
Yeah.
to make it fit. Yeah.
And this is one of the first times I think that someone else puts like a completely new part into the other into the song that at this point in time mostly I had written the riffs for.
Yeah.
Right, and so getting into that headspace where you changed my idea, it's sometimes really hard to accept, right? Because you're so familiar with that original idea that you have, but when something new comes along, it just sounds so different. It's hard to accept, right? And so I know I had a bit of a hard time just accepting it because I knew it's gonna be better when we work together, but I was so I was babying kind of my song a little bit, and I regret doing that to the extent that I did. But I think keeping that like small voice in my head, so like no, we gotta let everybody stir the pot, right? Let everybody do their part, and it's gonna cook nicely.
I have the same thing at times where I'm like, when we're writing a song and then someone throws in an idea that's very different from what I was thinking, and I'm like, okay, calm down.
Calm down,
It might end up well, and usually it actually does.
Yeah.
And then when it doesn't, it's just like, okay, we're kind of moving away from what the song should be, so let's backtrack a little bit. That's okay too, and we have done that in War,
especially War,
and in Origin we did that. And those songs aren't available yet, but they will be on our first album. So there we kind of backtracked at times because we
got stuck.
Yeah, we kind of got lost in all the ideas and kind of we're nowhere near where we should be.
Yeah.
So we have to go back and start again. So that happens, but most of the times I'm like, okay, this is a wild idea, but I'm kind of seeing where it goes. And usually it actually ended up improving things.
Yeah.
So.
And always, every time we've done a thematic, as I say, kind of connection to previous parts, that's the best way to do stuff. We always end up getting stuck or lost, as I say, when we make something that's so different that it doesn't even connect on any of those levels. It needs to have at least one connection. So that's kind of like a retrospect, for me at least, from this album, that we're basically just learning that it's okay to write progressive, but you also need to ground it some way.
It does.
Otherwise it's just like a mess. Like you have a bunch of different ideas that's not really connected at all, and you get confused.
And that's a very important thing in my head. Like when we have these difficult sections where it's different time signatures or just wild playing on something, I'm always trying to think from a pop perspective, like, okay, in this section we do this, but we kind of have to steer back to something familiar. And the vocals, usually I try to write something that's catchy to kind of ground the song a little bit and make something that might be a sing-along section in live concerts, and try to kind of ground things. So it's not just wild, like, look how great I am at guitar. Which it might be if no one but you guys had written the album. It might be too much guitar wanking.
I was a bit afraid of that, or worried about it's gonna be like that, because at the early stages of the guitar, which is sometimes the most fundamental writing process, where like the first ideas come into form, where you accept everything and everything is gonna fit together because it's so early on. It's really important to not overdo it on one instrument, to think that, I'm gonna leave space here for keyboards, and gonna think that there's actually gonna be a verse and chorus, and not just solo over everything to fill all the spaces.
You can't completely write the entire song on just guitar, because at this point in time we were 4 members in the band. It was the 3 of us and Henrik, and Henrik was mostly kind of isolated in his own space, and then it was 3 of us meeting at your place and writing our parts, and then we sent them to Henrik, and he wrote the drum space and keyboards for the song. And because of that, we were kind of stuck with being two guitarists, and then me, who also technically play guitar, like acoustic guitar, but I was kind of trying to think like a keyboard player, but it was kind of guitar dominating in the beginning.
That was
So-
the available instruments that we had
Yeah,
at my
so-
place as well.
So,
Which,
especially on this song, Arcane, and on another song from the album War, those were really guitar heavy. And then we kind of learned a little bit from that and tried to think differently on the other songs on the album. So they will have less, they are less riff based than Arcane and War ended up being. Then.
Yeah, the
Okay.
best way is to always be able to kind of know consciously and make the decision
Yeah.
what you're doing. If you're making a very guitar-based song, which we may do on the next album, it's still going to be a thing, but we just know very consciously that that's a decision we're making.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
if you write a section that's just 4 chords, you can let it be just 4 chords and think the keyboard might do something here that makes it into something more than just playing chords.
Yeah.
So you leave spaces open for other instruments or vocals or whatever it should be.
Exactly, without the fear of it sounding empty, like
Yeah,
we hear
exactly,
on these early demos. It's like if you just hear them isolated, you might think, well, this is kind of empty,
Yeah,
or I'm not sure if we have enough guitars, you know, like
Yeah,
that might be
yeah.
the thing that we went to.
we need to fill that space.
Yeah, but as Peter says, we're really getting more and more, learning from the process. We're getting more like familiar with what it's supposed to sound at each stage,
Yeah.
which is maybe the most useful kind of tip that we can give other musicians
yeah.
making songs. Is like just trust in the process. Well, first you have to do the process, but
Yeah.
there is, like a way to do that is really, useful and helpful if you do it the right way.
Yeah, if you have other members in the band, you have to trust that they are gonna do their job to kind of fill out the spaces that needs to be filled. So when you write the guitars, you don't have to play guitar like a bassist because there's no bass there, or you don't have to kind of add like 17 layers of lead guitars because there are no keyboards there. Like, you can leave those spaces out. And that's important to remember, because when you hear the early versions of Arcane, it sounds really dry because
It
it's
does.
just guitar. It's no keyboards at this point yet. So, but it ended up being a really cool song in the end. So it's just trust the process, trust that the members in your band or whoever is going to play in your song do their job. And then it usually works out. And if it doesn't, then you just go back and then you might add more guitars then if it's still something that's missing. Then you can do that later on. You don't have to do that in the beginning. So
It's a good point. That is a really good point. And in a songwriting process, I think that getting your ideas out is equally as important as leaving room for other creatives to take space.
Yeah.
So even if you have the urge to fill that room, fill that space with a solo or a new part or anything, it's hard to find the balance between knowing when to stop and send the idea out to the rest, or if you're I'm gonna leave it here, and then I trust the others will take it, and that might be hard to do sometimes. So let's see that you are a keyboard player, and I play the guitar for you, very romantically, right? And I write a riff or a structure or a melody or something, and then just cut it out, and there's silence.
Yeah.
Right? That's really hard for you to fill that space. So there needs to be something there to build on, but having that space to build on is really important. And to think that this is not a front stage instrument or riff or melody right now. This is gonna be the background stuff.
Yeah.
But the other instrument can build on that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right. And we, as songwriters, we have been writing demos for the best part of like 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And we know and trust each other's process and the process that we are as a group.
Yeah.
Right. And and all of the band, I think we have this good connection where we need to remember that, oh yeah, there's a drummer that wants to put their part on the song. There's a keyboard player that needs to put their spin on things, right? And so trying to come back to the song Arcane right now, it's a really guitar heavy song because it started out with 2 guitarists and vocalists. Tried to put some keys on, which as a demo keys really good. Like props to that, really. And that I think many of the ideas were from keyboard that you took. We sent out to Rowan, which put keys on at the later stages of this song, but he used many of your original ideas for keyboards.
So it started with, at first Henrik made his keyboards at some point, and then we had almost actually finished a recording of this song, which we intended to release with the kind of same sound like Crystallized, with Henrik playing drums, keyboards and bass, which he had recorded. So everything we were missing was it's one guitar solo in that death metal part.
Oh yeah.
That was missing at this point. And then I had recorded the first kind of pass of vocals, and I was going to do a couple of lines, redo a couple of things, but most of the vocals was done. And then we were missing Henrik's screaming vocals. And when we parted ways, we felt that we couldn't complete this version of the song with Henrik's stuff when he had left the band. So at that point, we needed to kind of go back and redo the song with other musicians. So that's when we got Anders on drums from Arcane, which you knew from playing in that band. So he got in the band really fast after Henrik left, and then we struggled finding a bassist and keyboard player. We tried for a long time, and through that time we also kind of Anders learned the songs on drums, and he made his version of the drums that Henrik had programmed, but Anders wanted to play acoustic drums, which I'm a big fan of that decision. That makes the song sound more organic. And then I had taken the keyboards from Henrik and written out my interpretation of that, which then was sent to Rowan, who made his keyboards to the song. So it's 3 keyboard players combining their ideas into one, performed by Rowan mostly. And it ended up being really great. There are many small nuggets of ideas that are still from Henrik's keyboards, but kind of translated through me and then through Rowan to becoming something different and something bigger.
Yeah, and that's a good part that you mentioned, that we sent our ideas to Henrik. And this is one of the things that we did send. We got something back sporadically from Henrik, because we wrote stuff and I think we put a new thing out every week or so.
Yeah, instead of we had a rehearsal space, but and in the beginning we used that a lot when writing Crystallized. We managed to actually meet up, but at some point around the time we released Crystallized, the schedules between us and Henrik started to become difficult to find a day in the week where we all had time. So it ended up being us 3 meeting at your place usually. Sometimes at the rehearsal, but at your place. And then we sent stuff to Henrik, which he added his stuff on. So then we started to get keyboards and drums on the sections.
We did. And as an important part of the songwriting process that we had was that we sent out this sound file to Henrik and our ideas, and we knew that eventually we were going to get back something which Henrik is really good at, which is he is pre-mixing and pre-mastering his demos.
Yeah.
So it sounds closer to a final product. And that part of it is something that I always really look forward to, where we have this idea, but the sounds are kind of mid and everything is a little bit out of place.
Yeah.
And it needs some adjustments, and we knew that we usually get something back from Henrik which sound image wise were much more fuller and closer to what it would sound like if it were a finished product. Which gives you an idea that this is how it's gonna sound. It's gonna sound really cool when you get that punch in, you get that drums, you get that bass and that full picture in the keyboard, which really helps sell the idea back to yourself. Where you sell something, where you put something out, where it's like, yeah, I got this riff, and it's like I'm not sure how it's gonna sound like on a record, but when you get that back with drums and it's pre-mixed and pre-mastered, it sounds much better, and you get more confident that this is a song idea that we can still work on and really put forward.
Yeah.
So
he was the one mixing and mastering Crystallized.
He did a really great job at that.
He was supposed to do it with this song, but we ended up parting ways before the song was finished. So. Yeah.
There are some parts that we haven't gotten to yet. We know we already have the ideas where with a hard hitting riff. I'm not sure what I'm gonna call that.
Death metal riff.
The death metal riff. Yeah. So we can see if we can find it. Yeah. So this was already in the song, but it was just like a part that I wrote. It just goes on, right? And it didn't really sit right.
Because at this point I included the growls there is again me trying my best using whatever wrong technique to make something that sounds like growling, and I only did it in a half of the section because we were talking about that the latter half should have a guitar solo, and it was at some point I think you should write something. But then it ended up being you playing it instead, I think.
I think I gave the idea that it should just be like this crazy blah, 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 type solo, right? Yeah. And Anders was like, on it, I'm gonna...
I'm on it.
I know exactly what you're thinking about. And you came up with this awesome solo, right?
Yeah.
And you did that in the background. And I want to say, historically, I think it was at the same time that this happened, where we were auditioning Anders on drums.
Yeah.
And so while we did some auditioning, I did a little sneaky thing. Sorry, Anders. I recorded everything. Yeah. So he was doing kind of a playthrough because we have rehearsed the song a little bit already.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to see like, oh, what would this sound if it were more organic drums, not programmed drums, like both me and Henrik had done.
Yeah.
So with Henrik out of the picture, we wanted to have Anders' take on the drums, so he could feel confident that this is also his song and not just like this other guy's drums, right? Yeah. And so I recorded the rehearsal where I tried to program and mimic the things that he played.
Yeah, the differences he did.
Yeah, and during this part, he kind of fell out of it.
Of the rhythm,
Of the rhythm, because it's late in the song, he might not have practiced that part as well, but he fell out and just started soloing, right? And and to just like, okay, I'm just gonna solo until I find the one again, and then I find bar one. Mm-hmm. And so I just programmed what he played.
Yeah.
in a sense.
It was just freestyling.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And so that ended up being on the MIDI drums again.
Yeah.
Which you can hear on this, I think. hear the drums.
Yeah, so that drum solo part came out of an accident.
It did. And the worst thing, or the best thing,
Yeah.
is that when you listen to that part, which is on the record,
Mhm.
and the part that he basically fucked up on,
Yeah.
it's almost identical.
It's really close, yeah.
It is.
Because he was just
Yeah.
listening to your kind of MIDI programming
Yeah.
of his mistake, or what I should call it.
Yeah.
And he just like, it sounds cool. I should write a drum solo around that.
Yeah,
So he ended up doing mostly what he did back then.
exactly. And then you, Anders, came back with this like, hey guys, I wrote this cool solo over the second part of the chaos riff, and we were like, oh, now we got like this collision. Can we extend it more? And like that doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we just like, nah, chaos is chaos. Let's just do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
we considered removing it as well, and then eventually, yeah, we decided, like you said, to just keep both. And they, for
Both.
some
We just
reason,
added both, and it was
work,
like,
yeah.
it is chaos, but in terms of the story of the song, like not necessarily the lyrics, but well, also the lyrics, but also in the musicality of the song, it feels like it's a chaotic kind of climax.
Mhm.
So here is like the potential end of the world is happening right there. So it's like the drums are going one way and the guitars is going one way, and it's just like the screaming vocals about despair and like, oh no, have just finished, and then so it's sort of the climatic potential end of the world is in my head what that section is. So it fits with just chaos. So you have to listen to the song several times to kind of like, okay, I'm focusing on the guitars, what are the guitars doing? And then another listen where like, what is the drums actually doing here? So you have to listen to it at least twice, maybe more, to kind of get what's going on. And yeah.
So we just have to pray that we can play this live consistently.
Yeah. It's a difficult section. Well, I'm not really doing anything at that point, but for you especially, I'm drummer Anders. It's like you two are doing the, the heavy lifting there.
Yeah.